Res Radio's on the air for Memorial Day weekend. Good evening, everyone. Well, I'm going to be talking about the Sho-Ban Space Force today. Now, the students of the Sho-Ban Junior and Senior High School were the only high school in the United States of America to design, build, and send into space five, count them, one, two, three, four, five getaway specials into space. Now, what is a getaway special? Getaway special is experiments that are put together and put in a canister and sent into space. So the reason they were able to do that, because no one said they couldn't. The instructor who made it possible was a science teacher way ahead of his time. And our kids were the beneficiaries by him showing them that they were capable of greater things other than themselves. He wrote a book called Children of the Stars. You can check out his perspective of the experiments and everything else. The reason I'm telling the story today is about the efforts by several people who raised funds for the project and participated. Now, when the science teacher came to Sho-Ban High School, they were operating in very, very confined spaces in what's called the HRDC building. There were two halves of the tribal building. It was the first half, and very, very small classrooms. I mean, you could only sit 10 to 12 people in each of those classrooms. The largest one sat about 20. So when the new school was built, we were able to actually move the kids and all the experiments over there, and the space was like double. So that was really cool. So I met Ed when I was working at Sho-Ban News. When Ed told me about his idea to send experiments up on the space shuttle, boy, I was all in. And in other words, our kids was going to be in a space program, and I felt, why not? That'd be cool. My brother Louis Archuleta took part as one of the consultants for the program, and we all got to go to NASA to watch the space shuttle take off. Now, we had a tribal member by the name of Bill Brower who worked for the TSA. You know, they're the ones who do all the screening for everything that goes through airport security. Well, Bill was a sergeant working in the Salt Lake area. So I called Bill to let him know that this weird contraption would be coming through security, and explained what it was. So Bill was able to get it cleared so we'd be able to take it all the way to Florida. Anyway, going back, my bro Lewis was a child of the 60s and watched the space program from to its inception to actually working on the space shuttle program himself at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Now, Lewis wanted to be an astronaut, but he couldn't because of diabetes. So when Sho-Ban High School started a space program, he was totally all in. So Sho-Ban Junior and Senior High School had the most getaway specials to go up into space. In fact, the only high school to do it. What's ironic is the day I was writing this chapter, a NASA astronaut visited Fort Hall. And the project, John Harriman, who's the first Native American astronaut, visited Fort Hall. So we were able to see him and listen to all of his adventures. And actually, one of the five experiments that went up on the space shuttle went up on his. And while he was there, he's able to do a spacewalk and all this stuff. So it was so cool to actually meet this guy. And last summer, I met his partner. Cassidy is his name, and he's pretty cool too. So I got to see two astronauts within the last year. That's really cool. So anyway, in order to make this project happen, it needed funding for the canister. It's the experiment itself was placed inside a canister that looks like a 55-gallon drum, and so they needed that to be bought. So at that time, I was working for Sho-Ban Gaming. And when I told the owner of our machines, James Johnson, who was a retired Air Force major, he was all in. he donated the funds to the project and said, make it happen to buy the canister. When the kids built the project, they named it the baby. And so, because it was their baby. So that's why they called it baby. So I need to tell you, NASA thought Sho-Ban High School was actually a junior college. No. So they approved the project based on thinking it was a junior college. Well, it wasn't, because no high school had ever participated in the Getaway Special program. So they had already approved it, and the kids were already working on it. So it was pretty hard for them to back out, so they were able to continue. After the first project was a success, they were able to do 4 additional Getaway Specials that flew into space. One of them was on the final space shuttle when it broke up, and when it broke up, then members of the Sho-Ban firefighter team went to help retrieve the parts and everything. So they're involved in that. So anyway, back to the story about Baby. By the time we got closer to sending Baby into space, James Johnson stepped up again, and he said, take all the kids to NASA to watch it take off. And he put his money where his mouth is. He gave funds to make that happen. He put everyone up in the hotel, paid for all the airfares, food, you name it, and he did that. No one told him to, but he did, because again, he was a major in the Air Force, so he knew how important that was for young people to be able to accomplish something. So we flew to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where we waited for almost a week for the shuttle to take off. Now, we were fortunate to have, like I said, a tribal member who worked for the TSA in Salt Lake to be able to clear it for us to be able to get it through. So that was so cool. So while we're waiting for the shuttle to launch, we had an opportunity to actually tour Kennedy Space Station. And I'd only seen that stuff on TV and magazines. So there I was with all of our young people who were making history. They were history makers, and I got to be part of that. So actually, in my book, I'm writing a book called Reporter's Notebook. I have a picture of Louis Archuleta and myself standing inside a section of the International Space Station. It's actually up in space right now, but this is before they actually had launched it. So the second picture I have is 3 students standing 5 miles away from where the shuttle was to take off. That's as close as you could get. They're Matt Dixie, Dusty Osborne, and J.W. Dixie. And I tell you, Baby was on board that thing. They were fueling. They're getting ready to go. And so all of us were excited, and we just couldn't wait. But, weather and everything, you have to wait for the perfect time for it to take off. And so the next picture that I have for the book is a picture of Matt Dixie, Dustin Osborne, Kaylani Bakey, Carmen Edmo, and J.W. Dixie. And their ROTC program director who made the trip with them was John Mueller, Sergeant John Mueller. And so that was cool that he was able to participate as well. So we went to this tourist shop, and one of the students picked up this stick, because we had nothing to do. So we went to go get our T-shirts and stuff like that, and our hats. And one of the students picked up a stick and started shaking it. Lewis's wife yelled, stop that, stop doing that. And freaked out the student. She dropped the stick, and I asked, Linda says, hey, she was shaking a rain stick, and we don't want rain right now. So that was pretty cool. I didn't know it was a rain stick either. So that was cool. I learned what a rain stick was that day. So finally, it's launch day, and it was off to Kennedy Space Center. Now, we rode in buses that the Kennedy Space Center provided for us. Now, this, again, was history in the making. No high school in the United States had ever sent a getaway special up in the space shuttle. So I call them our Space Force students. And this was history for not only them, but for the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. These were fantastic people that made this happen. Students, teachers, volunteers, funders, all made it happen. And let me tell you what it was like to be there to see and hear a space shuttle take off. That was the coolest experience I ever had in my life up till then. You see, first, you see the clouds of the space shuttle when its engines start. And then you see it taking off and clearing the tower. But as you're seeing that rolling across the water is this sound wave, and you can actually see a sound wave. And then it just blankets you, like totally surrounds you, and all you're hearing is as it's flying up. That was so cool. That was just one of the coolest things I ever done in my life. So anyway, when the shuttle cleared the tower, after about a couple minutes, and you need to use your binoculars in order to see as the space shuttle's taking off, the external fuel tanks take off and separate, but you needed your binoculars to be able to see that. And that's only about a minute and a half into the flight. So that thing is just traveling fast. So we were all proud of our students that day because they were the first members of the Sho-Ban Space Force. Congratulations. They were all heroes in my eyes. And I was very proud, not only for the students, but for the way it happened for our community to all come together and watch this beautiful thing called the space shuttle taking off into space with our students' experiments. So again, that's our Res Radio for this week, and I want to thank everyone for watching these Res Radio broadcasts. And again, it takes community to raise kids, and certainly these are the adults now. I mean, this is back in the 80s that we're talking about doing this stuff. And so all the young people that were involved in them are now adults. And so, and they have kids of their own. So they actually will be able to see this and see how cool that their mom and dads were to be able to do something greater than themselves. So again, everyone, thank you for listening to Res Radio. I am writing a book. It's called Reporter's Notebook, and it's short stories that I've been telling you here. Last couple of weeks, last couple of months, I've been telling you about the different stories, and so all of those are part of the book. And so yeah, we're slowly getting the book together, and we'll get it to a printer and see what it looks like and go from there. But anyway, again, just to remind you, I'm Dave Archuleta, member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. I was a news reporter I started out in radio at 16 as a radio announcer. Then I went and joined the United States Navy and served on board what's called the USS Benjamin Stoddard, which is a DDG, which is a guided missile destroyer number 22. And we were the last U.S. warship to leave Vietnam. So when we left, the war ended. After that, I got out of the Navy and I decided, well, I'm going to go to college. Well, that didn't quite work out, because I was more interested in other things than going to college. So I went to work for the tribe, setting up the first public relations office, and worked with the tribal attorneys on things like water negotiations and all sorts of different things in that office. Got to go to Washington, D.C. and lobby for funding. And I'll have next week's, we'll talk about the Sho-Ban school and how we got funding for that. And so anyway, got to be a lobbyist. I also got to go to Bailey School of Broadcast in Seattle, and that resulted in me getting to meet some people who would later connect me with being able to see the Pope. And so that's how my little stories go. One thing adds to the other. But from there, I came back to work for Sho-Ban News for 5 years. While I was at Sho-Ban News, I was recruited into the tribal court as a public defender advocate. From there, I went to chief prosecutor. And from chief prosecutor, I went to associate tribal judge. and did that for 9 years at Fort Hall. Then I went up to Wind River Reservation to the Wind River Tribal Court when they're reorganizing, and helped them reorganize their courts. So just a little bit of background on myself. And so anyway, that's Res Radio for this week. We look forward to hearing from you. Give it a like and make sure that you subscribe, so when you see this, when we put a new one on, it'll notify you there. By the way, this Warrior Strong thing that I'm wearing, that has some significance, and I'll be telling a story down the road about that. So, Res Radio's out. Have a good Memorial Day weekend.